Okay, with COVID-19 keeping a lot of us in, I thought what better way to spend the day than trying to learn Mark Mclaughlin's War and Peace. For those of you who saw my introductory video, I just described the pieces and showed a little bit about the board. But today I'm going to be trying the 1805 scenario, which is Austerlitz. And that scenario begins in August of 1805, goes to December of 1805. Now, as I do this playthrough, I will not be using the optional rules like the Imperial Guard, the cavalry charges, maneuver sur le derrière. So I'm just trying to learn the basic system. So we'll go with that. I'll take some video footage as I move the counters and probably do a little summary at the end of each move. In essence, though, this scenario revolves around the city of Vienna. To win the scenario, Napoleon really has to capture Vienna, and the Allies, the Austrians and the Russians, are trying to prevent that. Now, historically, for those of you who know the campaign, Napoleon maneuvered around the army of General Mack, surrounded it, more or less took it right out of the war. He marched on Vienna. The Russians forced marched as fast as they could, joined up with the Austrians, and there was this large battle here at Austerlitz. Napoleon winning, of course, a great victory and virtually winning that war, destroying the second coalition against him. So observe this video not for the optimum play. I'm obviously going to make probably some strategic mistakes. I'm playing both sides. And I am using the display cards for sure, because you've got very large stacks in this game. So I'll be relying heavily on these display cards, and you'll see on the map very few counters, mainly just leaders. Just to introduce the opening, Napoleon and the Grand Army are here. These are all blue, of course, French forces. These are Austrian and the Russians marching up. So let's begin August of 1805, and we'll see how it plays out. Now for the setup, we have French forces here at Brest. They don't have any effect on the scenario, I believe, because British forces are not mentioned at all. Historically, no doubt those forces are there to guard against English incursions against the French coast. Same goes true with forces here up in Amsterdam, down through Württemberg, here, Baden. These are forces, watching that front, but I don't believe many of those forces actually took place in the campaign. The game will probably be decided by the central forces and the forces here around Vienna. There are some forces here under Leader F here at Florence in Italy, but I don't think they'll be a major factor. I think the major factor will be these forces here, and of course the Russians, which are marching to help the Austrians. So we'll go with the first phase, which I believe is the attrition and supply phase. Let me just check that. Yes, the first phase is the attrition phase, which consists of supply and attrition, but you ignore attrition on game one. The next phase would be the alliance phase, which you also ignore in turn one. Reinforcement phase, I think there's only one reinforcement, but let me just check that. Nope, there are no reinforcements for the French. So we can begin with the movement phase. So I'm playing kind of with the limited intelligence here. I'm not going to cheat and look over at the leader displays. So I'm going to have to move based on the intelligence that I can see here on the board. Got a force under Ferdinand here. There's John and one over at Ratisbon. So the main Grand Army is there at Strasbourg. In this game, you're going to want to be within 3 movement points of your supply source. So that's important. Probably begin with the movement of the Grand Army against Ferdinand. Let me just examine the other options, then we'll pick up the video after I've moved all of the forces. Okay, not too much happened here for the French movement phase, but I'll let you know what I've done. I moved Napoleon down here. He force marched a couple of movement points, because he wants to hit Ferdinand here from this direction. He also dropped off a unit here to keep intact his supply line to Strasbourg. You've got to keep a supply line to a major city in France. I moved this leader A down to Ulm to capture that city and also secure the supply line. So we've got our first battle here with Napoleon and Ney and several forces attacking Ferdinand. Now, I might have made a mistake here, but I'm anxious to learn the combat system. So Napoleon is going in not with a huge army. I'm relying on Napoleon's prowess and hoping that Ferdinand isn't too large. But we're doing our first battle, and I'll do that, and we'll see how that turns out. Now, because you have to dissect stacks here in this game to get your battle modifiers, what I do is I take a little colored marker here for the French and a gray one here for the Austrians to remind yourself where these units are on the board. I mean, you could use a die, any kind of, indicator to show where the forces are, because once you take the forces off the map, you may forget where the battle took place. So let's dissect this stack here and see what the modifiers are for the battle. Okay, we're going to do my first battle here in the game system, and I'm new to this combat results table, and it's kind of innovative, kind of neat the way it's done. I'm used to having odds of 1 to 1, 2 to 1, 3 to 1, and way up to 5 to 1 and stuff like that. This game only has 3 odds: 1 to 1, 3 to 2, 2 to 1, which of course can be reversed. You could be 5 attacking a 10. It's like a 1 to 2, but they round off to like 2 to 1 going the other way. So it's a little bit different results table that I'm used to, and I want to make sure I get the modifiers right. What you basically do is count the morale of the your forces. Now, you're going to have to watch with these counters because the morale numbers, these little wee, I think they're stars or X's. I'll use a magnifying glass to see what they are. They are stars. Okay, so they're very, very tiny, but they're above the flag. So you have to take the morale of the largest force. So Napoleon's got, 5, 6, 7, 9 factors at morale 2, and the Guard has a morale factor of 3. So Napoleon's morale for his army is 2. The Austrians have the one little star above all their units, so their morale is 1. So I see it that Napoleon will be adding 3 to the dice, plus 2 for his morale. Oh, no, for the difference in morale. So his morale is 2, his morale is 1. So we'll be adding 4 to the dice total before you resolve this battle. And Napoleon is outnumbered, so we're on the 3 to 2 table. And it says that the larger force, that's the Austrian, always rolls the dice. And I put this little battle marker here to remind myself that you're doing the first round of battle. As they mentioned in the example, you can also use these battle markers to substitute what I'm using here. So let's do our first battle and roll the dice and see what happens. Okay, the Austrian player rolled a 5, but Napoleon is adding 3 plus 2, 5, and Ferdinand is adding 1 plus 1, 2, difference of 3. So this is really an 8. That's what we've rolled, an 8. And we look on the table here, combat results table, and we're on the 3 to 2 and an 8, which is 7. I wish I knew what that meant. Oh yeah, you look over on the combat loss chart, I believe. Let me just check that. Nope, got that wrong. 3 to 2, slide over, we got an 8 result. You look above here, and it tells you that the larger force loses 0, and the smaller force loses 1, which means Napoleon loses 1. In other words, to cut to the chase, Napoleon has lost the battle. Now, I can't help but feel that I'm reading this wrong. Probably in the modifiers, even though Napoleon has the smaller force, I'm thinking that the die roll is an 8. It's in fact 2 down here. Let me just check the modifiers now, because they don't mention subtracting in the example of play. Yeah, I see I got that wrong. It says here the dice roll is increased by the value of the leader of the larger force and decreased by the value of the leader of the smaller force. So I misread the modifiers. So I'll correct that and we'll see what the real result is. Okay, well that changes things considerably. The final result is 2 then, 3 to 2, 2. And if you go up here, the smaller force loses 1 and the larger force loses D2. So I'll fix that up and we'll see the repercussions of that on the board. Wow, so if I'm reading this right, Napoleon in the end lost 2 strength points and the Austrians lost 5. So it's a greater victory than I thought. So morale and of course the man playing, Napoleon, gives you a big advantage. So we'll take 5 off the Austrian force, 2 off the French. Go from there. So that's the result of the battle after 1 round. Now I have to see about the repercussions of doing a second round and what that D result means. Now I had to adjust the losses there because it says with the losses that the Austrians suffered they had to lose at least 1 cavalry. So that's what they have left. Their infantry was nearly cut in half with that battle. Okay, now the Austrian force also received a D2 demoralized result. So I'll look at how you break off the battle, because I don't think they want to stick around for a second round with Napoleon if they don't have to. Let me just check those rules. Yeah, the rules are fairly clear on that. Since the Austrian morale was 1, and now they've now got a D2 on them, their morale is 0. And when you get a morale of 0, you must withdraw. Let's see how that works on the board. Okay, that's the situation at the end of that battle. So it's only a 1-round battle. And the Austrians must withdraw. And I'll have to look at the retreat rules. I think they can retire here to Munich. It says they retreat 1 hex. But they're in a very bad way. Let me just check the retreat rules. They'll probably go to Munich, and then the demoralization marker will be removed. Yeah, Munich is a legal retreat route for Ferdinand, so he will retreat there. And it specifically says that at the end of the combat, demoralization markers are removed. So demoralization affects mainly the battle. Napoleon has an optional advance into that square, but I think he's just as well in this square as that one. So that will end the French turn. Well, with that battle, the Austrians are in a very bad way. They lost nearly half their force there. Now, I didn't do as well as Napoleon did, because in real life, he brought more forces around the rear of Mach and virtually surrounded him and caused the whole army to surrender. So in my game here, I inflicted double the losses, but it was not a great victory. However, it's now the Allied turn, and I think we're going to have to get these Russians up here to scoot up to the Vienna front as fast as they can. So I'll do the Allied move, and we'll pick up the video after that. Okay, this is the move after the Allies have finished their movement portion. Now I force marched Ferdinand as far east as he could go. You got to watch the force march table, because if you roll not very well, you can lose some troops. But he got very close to Vienna. Kutuzov also force march down from Lublin. Constantine force marched, although he lost 1, and Benningston arrived at Brest-Litovsk. The only major decision I've got is Charles' force. Now I just marched John, force march of 1, to get across this river here. But Charles has got a very respectable force. I'm not sure what to do with him. It would sure be nice if he took place for the defense of Vienna. And the scenario does not include any real advantage to holding on to Venice and Mantua. Of course, in real life they would. I think Charles' purpose is really to watch Messina. So maybe what I'll do is I'll have Charles move up a little bit here. Although he's got to watch guarding Venice and maybe operate against Napoleon's lines of communication. But he's got to be aware of Messina and be careful of him. For now, maybe I'll just do a very conservative move and move Charles to Mantua. Making sure I can move all of Charles' force. Charles has got 4, 10. He can move, and he can leave Hilaire behind. Yeah, Charles will move to Mantua, and that will leave Hilaire at Venice with a smaller force. So that's going to be it for the Allied move. Well, that's the situation after the Allies have moved. So we'll be advancing the turn record to September and turn 2, and the French forces will move. Now this time there will be attrition in supply, so that's the first thing you check when you do your move. So we'll pick up the video after I've checked supply, attrition, and the French have moved. Okay, not a really big move for the French on turn 2. Napoleon just advanced here to Munich, and Davout joined him. Had to force march 1 space from Baden. Messina decided to stay where he is, just watching Charles. So not much of a move, very conservative move this time. We checked attrition. Davout lost at least 1, so that wasn't too good. But Napoleon is safely concentrated now at Munich. Should be able to dictate things pretty quick. So we'll move to the Allies' turn and see what they can do. Okay, that's the turn after the Allies have moved. The Russians under Kutuzov and Constantine did force march. Kutuzov got a bad roll though, and he lost 1 factor. Bennigsen didn't get much. Constantine did force march successfully, and Ferdinand fell short too. He didn't get his forced march. Got 0. So that's the situation, the end of the second turn, end of August. So we'll be doing the September turn for the French. Looks pretty sedate, although Napoleon in a couple of marches could be at the gates of Vienna. So the scenario so far is pretty good at showing the campaign. More or less, the forces are concentrating for the big battle, probably near Vienna. So we'll do the September French turn. Okay, before I move the French forces or check for attrition, people who know the game might be wondering why I'm not rolling for the alliance phase. Well, it's because of the modifiers. There can be no change in the alliance right now. So when a potential change can come up, I'll roll in the alliance phase. So right now we're just checking the supply and attrition status for all of the French forces on the game. Okay, I'm about to move the French forces, and the French are getting some very bad attrition rolls. Messina lost some men, Napoleon lost some men, because you're concentrated. When you're concentrated for battle, you tend to lose men. So I've learned something about the game. Separate, keep your attrition losses low, concentrate only for battle. Very Napoleonic, by the way, and a rule that I totally agree with. So let's do the French movement phase. Okay, the French did a conservative move this time. Napoleon marched up the Danube here and crossed, just marching, not force marching. And leader A here is going to march on Ratisbon. That's no problem. Now, this fellow has some decisions. He can decide to be in the city, taking advantage of the fortifications and be doubled, or fight a field battle outside. But he's going to decide to defend inside the city. So what we do is take a little fortification marker, and then the leader A also has a decision. He has to decide whether he's going to assault it or lay siege to it. And I think he's going to pick the siege option because he's in no hurry. So I'll put those markers down and we'll take a look at what it looks like. Okay, so what you do here is you put a little fort marker on top of the unit to show that he's inside the city fortifications. Here's leader A, we don't know his name, and he's going to be besieging the place. And we put a 1 marker because it's the first turn that he's besieging the player. Now, if he rolls a 1 or less, the whole city will be captured. And each turn, the siege marker will be increased by 1, eventually increasing to a maximum of 5. So a siege, in theory, could fail if you keep rolling 6s. So that's after the movement, so we might as well do the combat, and that the only combat is that siege turn. So we'll roll a die, and if the French roll a 1, Ratisbon falls. They roll a 2, so Ratisbon holds on. So that's the situation after the French have moved and done their combat. So we'll go over to the Allies' turn, see what they can do. I think Kutuzov and Constantine should be able to concentrate now for the big battle near the city of Vienna. Let's see how they do. Okay, that was a really rough turn for the Allies. They force marched together, so we've got Kutuzov, Ferdinand, and Constantine all in the same square, just northwest of Vienna. So they're not in a bad position. But they got horrible losses for attrition. So that's the end of the September turn. So historically, we're a little bit ahead of time because Austerlitz was fought in December, and Napoleon will be doing the October turn, and we actually could see the big battle taking place here should the Allies decide to stay and fight. I'm anxious to see what happens when two big armies come together, so that's probably what I'll do. So we'll move the turn record to the October turn, and we'll probably decide the game perhaps in this battle, who knows. So we'll do French supply and attrition, then do movement, and there might be a big battle. 1 hex away from the Austerlitz square. Just to give you an idea what this attrition table is like and why it's so severe, Napoleon right now is on the 21 plus table. That's because his army is concentrated, and he'll be rolling 1 die to see what his losses are. Now French and French satellite units get to -1 from their dice. That's the only thing they're going to have in their favor before they move. So, of course, Napoleon needs to get low. Let's see what he gets. He rolls a 4, which becomes a 3. That means he's got to lose 3 steps, and one of them has got to be at least cavalry. So that's really rough. So I'll reduce the Napoleon's stack and go from there. Okay, that's the situation after the French have moved. Napoleon has moved the Grand Army opposite Kutuzov. And we still have the siege going on at Ratisbon. So we'll roll a die. The French roll a 1 or... Whoops, you know what? I made a mistake. I haven't secured my line of supply. I'll have to leave a 1 behind there, because if you don't, you're going to be in mighty big trouble. You have to be 3 moving points to a supply depot. So a supply depot can be a man. So we'll leave a 1 there. You always have to be cognizant of your supplies. So it's 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, and so on. You must keep a line of supply or else you're going to be in big trouble. Alright, so we're doing the siege here at Ratisbon. The French will roll a die, 1 or 2, and the city will fall. They roll a 3. The city does not fall. Alright, so now we're doing this big battle right near Austerlitz. I'll put markers down, and we'll see how that battle goes. Okay, that's what the battle is going to look like. And Napoleon is slightly outnumbered again. He's got, 17 factors against, I think, 22 or 21. 7, 8, 10, 12, 17, 22 factors. So, probably be a 3-2 battle. But Napoleon's going to be adding to that, of course, or subtracting from it. And the senior commander here is Kutuzov. So it'll be a very interesting battle. Certainly a die roll is going to determine everything. Like I said before, I'm not playing with the Imperial Guard rules right now, nor the cavalry rules. I suspect next time I play, I'm probably going to want to use them, because that's what Napoleonic warfare is all about. But I'm trying to keep it simple now and try to understand the basic system. So I'll work out the morale for the French. I think it's self-evident. They've got 11, 12, 13, 15 factors, so their morale is certainly going to be 2. Now the Russians have 2, 4, 6, probably 2 also. Yeah, and the Austrians have 9 factors and their morale is 1. But these guys have more, so 7, 8. The morale of this army will be 2. So will Napoleon's. So Kutuzov will be adding 2 to his dice. Pardon me, adding 4 to the dice. 2 plus 2. And Napoleon will be minusing 5 from his dice. So it's going to be a very interesting battle with Napoleon having the smaller force. Let's see how this pans out. Okay, the Austrians rolled a 5, which I don't think is going to be very good. So 5 plus 4 is 9, but 9 minus 5 is 4. So the final result that we look on the chart is 4. And let's take a look at that. Okay, so you cross-hatch the 3 to 2 result here with the final result, which is 4. And the large force has a 1 on it, and the small has a 0, which indicates no loss. And 1 says combat loss chart. So we have to flip to the other side and look at the combat loss chart. And this is the total strength of the smaller force, which is Napoleon. He had 17. So we slide down here, I got a 1. The Austrians will lose 2. And Napoleon loses nothing. So Napoleon wins that battle. That's only battle round 1. But to distribute losses, I'll take 1 Russian off and reduce the Austrians by 1. So that's the armies after the first round of combat. There was no D result, so the Austrian morale was not lowered. Okay, I see because the Austrian-Russian force took casualties, they have to roll for leader casualties. Now, I'm a little unclear about this one, because it says the leaders that were committed to battle. Well, these guys were in the hex, but I didn't really commit them to battle. It was Kutuzov that was the commander, so if I'm doing that wrong, maybe somebody can let me know. But I'll just roll just for Kutuzov. I roll a 7, and there's less than 12 leaders unharmed, so no problem. Now, the Austrians could retreat, but I think their position in front of Vienna is sound, and the battle wasn't that bad. They got a very lousy die roll. So I think they're going to go for a second round. Let me examine the odds and the modifiers for that, and we'll see what happens for the second round of battle. Okay, for the second round, the modifiers will actually be the same. It's still a 3 to 2 battle. Napoleon is still outnumbered. The morale is still the same, just by a smidgen, because the Russians have more forces than the Austrians. So Kutuzov will still be adding 2, and then 2. He'll be adding 4. And Napoleon will be subtracting 5 from his dice. So the Austrians will roll again. Hopefully, for their side, they'll roll higher, because they need to roll high to really hurt Napoleon. They roll the die, and they get an 8. See what that means. Okay, 8 plus 4 is 12. 12 minus 5 is, so you got 7. So they're going to be on the 7 chart this time. Slide over the 3 to 2 ratio there. And look at the 7. And that's over here. And this time the result is 1-1. Very interesting. It says consult the combat loss chart. So they're each going to lose 1, I'm pretty sure. It says here total strength in the smaller force was 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. It was 17. So they're each going to lose 2, I guess. Total strength points in smaller force. Yeah, each are going to lose 2. Bloody battle that rages. That's the result after round 2. They've each taken 2. Very bloody battle. Now I can see now that I think the optional rules are probably a good one to play with. The cavalry rules, the commitment of the guard, that's going to change this game quite a bit, which I think would make the game better. But I want to see what happens in this battle. So the Austrians are going to go another round. So we'll put a battle 3 marker down there and fight another round. Now, if I read this correctly, I technically have to roll for Napoleon and Kutuzov, because Napoleon was involved in the battle. And like I said, if I'm doing this incorrectly, someone that knows this game, let me know. I would think it unlikely that you roll for every single leader, but I could be wrong. Maybe that's how you distribute the losses. Let me just check out the rule again and see. I see I did something wrong already. It says at the end of each combat phase, not round, each player rolls for the named leaders. So I didn't have to roll for Kutuzov or Napoleon. Let's recalculate this battle, because the odds may be changing now, and see what happens. Okay, strangely enough, the modifiers are still the same. Kutuzov will still add his 2. The morale of the Russians and Austrians is still 2, because the Russians outnumbered the Austrians just by 1. So this round of battle could make or break the battle. Let's see what the Austrians roll this time, because they still have a larger force. Well, I suspect that's going to be a disaster. They rolled a 4, so you add 4, that's 8. Then you minus the 5, so they've really rolled a 3 on the 3 to 2 table. And I doubt very much if that's very good. 3 to 2 to 3. Well, son of a gun. If I read this right, the larger force gets a D1 and the smaller force gets a 1. No, that's bad, because the Austrians are the larger force. So they're in bad way. D1 and 1. All right. Now we look on the other side to see what the losses are. Okay. Smaller force was 11, 12, 13, was 15. So they're here. Now the Austrians got a D1, so they're losing 3, and the French are losing 2. Still a very, very bloody battle. Okay, that's the armies after the casualties have been taken off, and the morale of the Allies went down by 1, so their morale is now 1, where it was before 2. The odds might have even changed, so 7, 8, 10, 12, 13 versus 7, 8, 9, 14. No, the odds still haven't changed. It's still a 3 to 2 battle, with the Allies still being larger. But the modifiers will be slightly different, and I'm taking a chance. If I was playing this for money, $500 prize or something like that, I probably would withdraw the Austrians, but I'm a wargamer too, and I want to see a decisive battle here. I want this thing decided. So the Austrians are going to fight another round. They will have to get some nice dice to beat Napoleon. But let's roll the dice and see what happens. Okay, the modifiers are Kutuzov's going to be adding 3 to the dice, and Napoleon will be minusing 5. Here we go. I don't think that's going to be good enough. Okay, the Austrians rolled a 6, which becomes a 9, and then 9 minus the 5 is a 4, so they're on the 4 table here. Look at the 3 to 2, slide up. No, the Austrians are bad. They've lost 1, and Napoleon's on the 0. So we flip to the other side to see the actual losses. Napoleon is 7, 8, 9, 10. He's a 13. Oh, the Austrians lose 2, which that probably will tend to break them. So this will become a 3. Now that's the situation after the end of the 4th round. Now the numbers are what? 7, 8, 10, 13, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Oh, no. The Austrians still outnumber them by 1. 7, 9, 10, 11, 14. Wow, it's still a 3 to 2. Unbelievable. I'm going to check this demoralization marker. I seem to remember that it's removed or something. Let me just check that. Yes, the Austrians keep the demoralization marker, which makes sense. So I'm going to go another round. That'll be like the 5th round. But I think now this is really a battle of desperation. I think the Austrians and Russians might have broke by this point. Anyway, let's do another round. Kutuzov will still be adding 3 to the dice, and Napoleon will still be minusing 5. So well, the Allies could roll boxcars. So let's find out. They roll the dice. And 8, which I don't think is going to be good enough. 8 plus 3 is 11. 11 minus 5. Okay, 6. So, we look on the 3 to 2, look at the 6 table, slide up. Wow, it's a bloody exchange. 1, 1 each. Well, what does that mean when you go to the loss table? 1, 1 each. And Napoleon was 7, 8, 9, 10, 13. 13 with a 1, 1 each. It means you each lose 2. This battle is just horrific. Let's remove the losses and see what happens. And I can really see why you should use the guard and cavalry rules now. Probably wouldn't have these battles that last as long. But they've each taken their losses, and because I'm not using the guard rules, you can take them off the guards or the infantry, which also is not as realistic. Nor the cavalry, you can take them off them or not. So I think, like I said, next time I'm going to play with the cavalry and the guard rules. So what are the odds now? We've got 6, 7, 8, 10. Napoleon's an 11. And these guys are 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. As long as they keep rolling exchanges, these Austrians are going to go down like a drunken person in a barroom brawl. So we're going to go for another round. Kutuzov adding 3. Napoleon minusing 5. One of these die rolls has got to break this army. Away we go. 6. No, that's not going to be good enough. 6 plus 3 is 9. 9 minus 5 is 4. So we're back on the 4 table again. Looking at the 3 to 2 column. And that gives smaller force 0 and the larger force 1. So the Austrians are definitely losing the battle. And we look on the chart, 6, 7, 8, 9, 11 chart. Well, 2 more losses for the Austrians. So I'll take 1 off the Austrian infantry. 1, I'll destroy this guard cavalry, guard infantry, though I wouldn't usually do that. Now we're left with 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Finally, Napoleon has a larger force. And I think the Austrians would be out of their mind to stay for another round. They're definitely going to get defeated by Napoleon. So I think they'll break off the combat now. And they will retreat 1 square, where that gray marker is. And we'll pick up the video just after the Austrians have retreated. Okay, so that's the results after the battle. Napoleon entered the square and Kutuzov retreated here to the Wagram square. Now, I made a mistake, a strategic mistake in playing the game. Not a game error, but a strategic error. You may remember in the video that battle where Napoleon had the chance to advance, and I purposely did not advance him. Well, the scenario rules have special rules for when you advance. I'll just look those up. Yeah, I found the relevant rule reference. It's in an unusual place, though. It's under the section under Alliances, and it just says, during a combat phase, a player is awarded 1 victory point for each hex 1 or more of his units enter after battle, which was occupied by 5 or more enemy strength points at the start of the combat phase. The one that's curious to me, though, is this one. The non-French player receives 2 victory points if any of his units enter a hex which was occupied by Napoleon and 5 or more strength points at the start of the combat phase. Well, the Austrians didn't enter Napoleon's hex. Napoleon entered the Austrian hex, so I don't think that applies here. But Napoleon would get a victory point for winning this battle, and another victory point for that other battle he won, although I didn't advance in that case. But I will wrap the video now because I think I've seen enough to give you an idea of what the game is like. It's not a comprehensive example of the whole scenario by any means, and the war would go on. There's still 2 turns left, November and December. You do get small reinforcements here from Vienna and Budapest, Perhaps Kutuzov would fall back to Vienna and make a last-ditch stand of the city. I don't know. That's for another video. Whether I'll shoot it or not, I don't know. But this was just a practice game, and I hope you get an idea of what the game is about. The play was not perfect. I made mistakes, still learning it, but I'm really impressed with this game. I love the concentration rules, the fact that if you concentrate, you take more casualties. You spread out so you don't take those attrition losses, and yet you must concentrate for battle. So that's it for War and Peace, and thank you for watching.